Space, the final frontier.
Hello there, Trekkie Dave here. So this is episode 35. And today I'm going to be discussing a film that is kind of not overly respected, but it's a film that I've actually always really enjoyed. One main reason that I've always loved this film is this when my youngest child, Ethan, was probably 6 or 7. I talked to him about this yesterday and he remembers this. But this was his favorite film. And it's a very child friendly Batman film. I think I could make a pretty good argument that it's really the only child. Sorry, I'm just going to take my glasses off for a quick sec, just as I'm rambling here. But I think you could make a pretty good argument that this is really the only truly family or child-friendly Batman film, because I think a lot of this film, it's like the 1966 Batman TV series and movie. It has very much a children's theme and style to it and so forth. It's, again, child-friendly. And when my youngest son was growing up, it was a Batman film that I could show him and that he loved. He also loved, like when I was a child at that age, I loved the Adam West Batman as well. And of course that was very child friendly, aimed at children, I'd say. And I love that as well. So I originally showed Ethan the Adam West TV series, and that led into us watching Batman and Robin. That tonally and so forth, sorry, I have a little bit of a cold, but tonally and so forth is very similar. So because of that, my child loving that show and movie, the Batman 66 movie so much, anybody who has children know that you end up watching it over and over and over again. And that's what happened when Ethan was that age. We literally would watch it all the time. So you become very familiar with the material because you're watching it all the time. From a personal standpoint, I've got a major personal connection to the film because of that. And I remember us being in Penticton and going to the toy store, and I believe we got our older boy Cole, at the time, who's a couple of years older, a Slinky, and Ethan, we got a bunch of Batman figures, and there was like those chunky Playmobil ones kind of thing with Batman and Robin, and I remember the Riddler and the Joker, and we got him all of those and went back to the hotel and they played for hours. At one point, Ethan had a big bin just full of these Batman figures. It was really cute. So anyways, this is episode 35 and I'm going to discuss Batman and Robin and why I think it's actually succeeds at what it's trying to do. It's not a perfect film, especially for an adult. Just like I've communicated films that I love on my channel that I've done episodes on that I have issues with, kind of like Star Trek Generations. Again, I love so much about that film, but it has issues that I acknowledged in that video. And same with like Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier. I love that film as well, but it has issues. Schumacher's Batman has issues, but I think a lot of it is a misunderstanding in that I think that a lot of us as adults go into Batman and Robin expecting it to be an adult movie, expecting it to basically be kind of, especially at the time, at this time, expecting it to be like a Nolan Batman film. And it's not what it is, and it's not trying to be that. To be clear, Batman and Robin is a homage to the Adam West Batman 66. And that's what it's trying to be. It's campy, and it's trying to be campy. And just if people think that that's not Batman, as somebody who's collected Batman comics my entire life, I'll just be blunt, you're wrong. That has always been a major element within the Batman franchise. The whole element of its campiness. And that's always been in there. And it has as much a history as the more serious Batman 89, which is basically a representation of the 1939 Batman as a lone vigilante, or the Nolan Batman, which is more, the long Halloween sort of Batman from the 1990s and 2000. All of them are elements of Batman that have been a part of the Batman franchise forever.
Is there something wrong, sir?
Alfred, am I pig-headed? Is it always my way or the highway?
Why, yes, actually. Death and chance stole your parents. But rather than become a victim, you have done everything in your power to control the fates. For what is Batman, if not an effort to master the chaos that sweeps our world? An attempt to control death itself.
But I can't, can I?
None of us can.
So there's a few things I want to cover off. I'm going to cover off why I love the film, which one of the main elements is because my son loved it so much and because I watched it so much and so forth. I'm going to tell you a story about watching it that's kind of funny. And I'm going to tell you everything that I love about it. Okay, so I'll begin with everything that I love about it here. Okay, so I just wrote off a couple of quick things here. And sorry, I'm just gonna have a little bit of coffee here. I'm just a bit parched here. Feeling a little bit off today, but so I've got my Star Trek mug here. But I'm a little bit off today, but I'm wanting to get this video out to you guys, so I'll do it. And just a few things to point out. First off, I know he's a little, he's considered the worst Batman, but I actually love George Clooney's performance in this film. I think he taps into Adam West in a few scenes that I appreciated, but also I felt that he actually plays the role like Adam West did, with this sort of confident bravado sort of. He's calm. He's calm. He knows right from wrong. He knows truth from lies. Like he says it like it is. And sometimes it comes off as kind of funny. But also this film is meant to be campy. It's meant to be that way. It's not that his performance is wrong or something. But I find it interesting that he's actually the least, him and Alfred are the least, and actually, well, him and Alfred and their storyline in this is the least campy element of it. So George Clooney plays the role completely straight, and he plays it serious. They never make fun of him or his character in the film, and I appreciate that, and I think it was the right way to do it. So I love George Clooney's performance. I love Chris O'Donnell's performance. And surprisingly, I love Uma Thurman's performance as the villain. I think she's great. And I love Schwarzenegger's performance as Mr. Freeze. I think there's so many things he does in this film that works. And one of the big things I really, really like is how he ends up helping Batman and Robin at the end. And how he, Cole, I'm doing a podcast. Okay? But how he isn't really the villain. How he helps Batman and Robin at the end of the film, and how he's actually the turning point that assists them in winning over the villain, who's Uma Thurman. And her performance is so over the top. Like, she's by far the most campy of it, but it works because she's the villain. And I love that about her performance. Like, she's purposely going over the top. And, but for me, the biggest thing is Michael Gould and his portrayal of Alfred. Again, it's never made fun of, and in this film, I think you know why it shouldn't be, but it's never made fun of, and he does such a great job with his portrayal. I think it's actually the best Alfred. You know, there's no Michael Caine 30-minute speeches on what's going on or something. It's simply through his portrayal. He shows, he doesn't tell, and it's so well done. Okay? So I love the portrayals of the characters, and I love how the actors portray them in this film. I think that for this Batman film, it works, and it works well. Secondly, Joel Schumacher. I think this is Joel Schumacher's best film, and I think it's his best Batman film because it's pure Schumacher. Schumacher, to me, he's not my favorite film director. Schumacher, I know more has a history in theater, and I loved his version of The Phantom of the Opera, which is one of my favorite books of all time. And I thought he did a great stage interpretation of that I really appreciated, which kind of has elements of Batman and The Phantom of the Opera. But I think he did a really good job with that. And he's a visual storyteller, which is something I really appreciate. Okay, something else that I love about this film is how Gotham is portrayed as a city. It's not as good to me as, say, Batman '89 or Batman Returns, from a style standpoint that Tim Burton did, but it blows the Christopher Nolan Gotham out of the water, especially with The Dark Knight, which was basically, he just shot Chicago. He didn't do anything. It's some of the laziest Batman filmmaking I've ever seen. He basically just shot in the middle of Chicago and didn't alter anything. Didn't even try to make it look like Gotham. It's clearly Chicago. If you've been to Chicago, you can actually identify the areas that The Dark Knight was shot in, because they didn't change anything. They didn't even put up Gotham signs. I mean, it's Chicago. So I love the visual representation. And one of the things I really love is the opening of this film. As a kid's movie and an action movie, this is, in my opinion, the best opening of any Batman film ever. Like, from a fun standpoint. The whole thing with Mr. Freeze in the museum, and he's stealing the diamond, and Batman and Robin are there, and they have that big kind of, like, it's sort of like a hockey fight or whatever. I love the part where I think it's hilarious, where they have ice skates under their boots, hidden under their boots. I know it's ridiculous, but again, this is Schumacher's homage to Adam West's Batman '66. If Batman can have shark repellent on a bat helicopter, then I'm not sure why he, with his utility belts and all of his toys, as Jack Nicholson said in Batman '89, where does he get all these wonderful toys? Well, why not Batman ice skates? I mean, it's funny, and it fits the homage to Batman '66. It's ridiculous, but I love it. I love it. I just, every time I watch this movie and I see that part, it makes me laugh. The action part in that scene, but throughout the entire film with Mr. Freeze's goons, is very well choreographed and realized it's some of the best in the entire franchise. So I love that whole opening scene. I love the rocket ship over Gotham. I love seeing Gotham from above, and just what Schumacher did with it from a stylistic and from a conceptual standpoint. It's clearly not a normal city. It's Gotham, and it's clearly comic book, you know, inspired, kind of over the top. Same with Batman 66, and I love it. I think it's so well done. I love it when they escape the rocket ship by jumping out of it. I think that's really well done. I love the part how Mr. Freeze, I love Mr. Freeze's gun. I love how he uses his gun to stop himself from crashing, and then Batman and Robin basically follow him and do the same thing, and Batman has like his cape out so he can fly and so forth, and Robin does a similar thing. It's pure Batman. I love that, like Batman 66, they weren't afraid to be comic book accurate, meaning that the costume that Adam West wore in Batman 66 is the exact costume out of the comic book at that time, and same with Robin. I like that. And in Batman and Robin, at the time that this film came out, which was 1997, those are comic accurate costumes from the time, because I collected those comics. And Batman wore a full black costume with even he didn't have the yellow, it was black. And they do that in this movie. So they're more concerned about being comic book accurate than you know, representing the you know, the more Batman 89 and so forth, which I appreciated, because I think that's kind of cool, because often we want to change those things with these films, right? So I appreciate that as well. And something else I wanted to just say quickly here, because I saw some criticism towards this film that the Robin character is very whiny and so forth. There's a couple of things I'd comment on that. First off, he's supposed to be a teenager. Secondly, and I think that this is the most important thing, he really doesn't begin to become overly whiny in the film. And I actually like Chris O'Donnell's performance. I think it's right. Because when you watch the beginning of the film, he's Robin as Robin should be. It's not until he's drugged by poison ivy that these insecurities that he has, and he's probably had for a long time, come welling up, and he truly becomes whiny. Anyways, that's just something I wanted to comment on, because that was a consistent criticism I saw towards this. But I actually think his performance is really good in this film, and I think it's accurate to Robin. I love the scenes of Dick, Bruce, and Alfred together in the Batcave discussing Mr. Freeze. And they're just wearing their casual clothing, just sitting on a couch, just normal. Like they're not even in the Batcave, they're just in the living room watching a screen. It just seemed very real to me and very, very normal. And I appreciated that about it, that the film took time to have normal moments like that. So, let me just keep going here. One quick sec, another thing. I love the Batmobile in this. I think the Batmobile is one of the better ones. It's sort of a combination of Batman 89 and Batman 66 and the Nolan in a little bit, in that you can tell that it's a big vehicle and that it's got weight behind it. Like, it's a vehicle that I think could go through a building. But you know, Schumacher didn't make it a tank or an obvious tank like, say, Nolan did. But it's got substance to it. I love that it has police sirens on it. That's something else I really appreciated about this film, and is a throwback to Batman 66. If you watch the Batman 66 television series and movie, Batman and Robin are actually deputies of the police. they are sworn deputies to uphold the law. I always kind of like that. It's sort of a black and white kind of old school 1960s world where Batman's not a vigilante. He has the approval of the police, and there's a scene where they're leaving the Batcave in the Batmobile, and Batman has a conversation directly with Commissioner Gordon. That's right out of Batman 66, and I like that. I just think it's a change of take, and it's consistent with the more campy Batman, but I love that, and I think it's well done. So, okay. One quick sec here. One quick sec. And I think based on Batman 66 and the movie and the television series, I like that it respects its source material. It isn't afraid, even though it might be out of time right now, these elements. They weren't afraid to make a 1997 with those elements because it respects the source material and where it comes from. I like that. Okay, so one quick sec here. You guys can give me one quick moment. Sorry. And there's one other theme that I really need to discuss on this. And I think some of you may even know where I'm possibly going with this, because I think most of you know that I'm sick, that I'm passing away. Obviously, I don't need to mention that again, but the reason why I am mentioning it is because that is the other personal component of this film that makes me even more attached to it, because Alfred, in the film, so first off, I'll tell you what the main theme that I see in this. It's family. The main theme of Batman and Robin specifically is family. And what's funny about this film, unlike other films that I've reviewed and analyzed with, like, say, The Last Jedi recently that had, like, holy cow, 21 main themes or deep themes, this film literally has one. It has a singular theme, and it's family and how a family is affected by a family member dying, or a family member has a terminal disease and they're dying. In this case, it's Alfred. So in this film, it's presented that they're basically a family. And when Alfred is diagnosed with this disease that he's dying from, and he can no longer because he's always kind of been the one running the family, he takes care of them, which makes sense, right? Because he's the butler and so forth. And he's always been a father figure to Bruce. So Alfred plays the father figure, and then Bruce has to take that over when Alfred becomes sick because he can no longer do it. Dick is the teenage son. A new character, Barbara, who in this version is related to Alfred and is seeing him. She's kind of the daughter. And it's about how they have to come to terms with Alfred's death, and how that affects each of them, and how they have to, take on new responsibilities, and just how they come to terms with Alfred's mortality. And as somebody who's going through this right now, this is actually the most serious part of this film, and one of the reasons why I love this film so much, because so much of what happens in this film, as somebody who's going through this right now, it actually rings true. So even though on one level this film has this campy element with the Uma Thurman villain and all of that, the other element is actually super serious and really adult driven, meaning that it doesn't make fun of it at all, or it doesn't kid it down at all. Like, it deals with the subject matter in actually a surprisingly serious way. And I think it's extremely well done, because there are scenes in this film that I've gone through, with conversations I've had with family members and with friends, and trying to explain what's happening with me and my health. And I just think that Schumacher handles it in such a real way that I really appreciate it, especially the performances by George Clooney and by Michael Gould as Alfred. It's done in a realistic way, and like I said, I've come across these situations, and it's exactly the way these situations play out in the real world. And I really appreciate and respect that. I think that Schumacher did a really good job of doing the right thing with that subject matter and treating it seriously, and I really appreciate that. And some of the scenes, to people who have never gone through something like this, they may seem sort of melodramatic, but I can tell you from a first-hand experience, they're not. It's not easy to be in a position like this, not just for yourself, but for, in this case, with Batman and Bruce and so forth, with the family. But it's hard, it's difficult, and I love the way that it's portrayed in this film, because I've been in those situations. There's days where things are going really well for me, and I'm having a really good day, and then you have something happen. You have a moment where, you know, you're somewhere. I've had this happen where I'll be somewhere and I'll have to sit down because I can't physically stand up anymore. And there's scenes like that in this film that may seem to people who have never experienced something like that to be melodramatic or whatever. But I'm telling you, it's not. That's exactly the way the world works for somebody like me. And we've been at events where I've literally had to stop what I'm doing and sit on a couch, or we've had to leave because I can't do it anymore. And that happens in the film to Alfred a couple of times, where he's trying to fight through it, and you can tell from Bruce's reaction and Dick's reaction and Batgirl's reaction, Barbara's reaction, that they see what's happening. And I've had that happen as well, where like we were recently at the West Edmonton Mall walking around, and I had to actually stop my walker and sit on it because I couldn't continue to walk. And then you, of course, get the reaction of your family because they're concerned, and that happens in the film. And when I see these moments in that film, they're personal to me because I've experienced that. And you don't want to burden your family. You don't want them to worry, so you want to fight through it. But there's moments where you just can't. So I love the fact that they represented that in an honest way. And just to make sure I'm clear, it's not being melodramatic. Because when something like this is happening to you, that's exactly what happens. So I respected that Schumacher was aware of that and respected that. And that's one of the reasons why I love this film so much. So I'm just going to tell a quick little, and something else I want to say here, which is kind of funny. And I just want to get this out now while it's on my mind, and then I'm going to tell you a quick story and end this off. But one of the things, oh, hold on, actually, I lost my train of thought there. I'm going to quickly tell you the story, and then I'll go back to that. Okay, so one of the funniest, I've always loved this film, but I think it's more personal to me now because of that personal connection with Alfred passing away and so forth. But I'll tell you a quick funny story. Years ago, I got home from work and I wanted to put a Batman film on. And I actually stuck on The Dark Knight, and I ended up watching about 20 minutes of it, and I ended up abandoning it because it was just so serious and so forth. And one of the things I love about this film is how fun it is, because when The Dark Knight didn't work for me after 20 minutes, I actually stuck on Batman and Robin. And I watched the entire thing, and I just enjoyed everything about it. It was so much fun, and that's one of the big things. Like, I don't want to leave here with this video you thinking that, you know, because of that subject matter of Alfred dying that the film is so serious, because at its core, this film is so much fun, and that's one of the things that I love about it. And watching it that night was when I really realized just how much I love this film. I unapologetically love this film. I think it's great, and it's not perfect, like I said, just like other films that I love. It has issues. Like, this is not an iconic film, but, and this is what I wanted to say before when I lost my train of thought, I would put this film, and this might surprise a lot of people, but it's a personal opinion, but I would put this film in the top tier of Batman films. Not just because it's different from every Batman film and it stands out, but because it is so much fun, and because it is such a loyal representation or homage to Batman 66, which was from my childhood and which I love so much. So I unapologetically love this film, and it would be top tier for me, because I think it's that good. I think the character arcs, I think the acting, I think some of the dialogue, I think the visuals, I think just so many elements make this such a great film. And basically, this and Batman '89 are two films on opposite sides of the same coin. Both respect and fundamentally succeed in respecting their source material, and in their own ways represent Batman well. And I love them both for that. So both Batman '89 and Batman and Robin are top tier for me. And this might surprise a lot of people, but The Dark Knight doesn't even come close to top tier for me. I mean, it's not horrid, it's not terrible, but it doesn't even fit. I'll go over that on another video, but The Dark Knight to me is more of a political statement than it is a Batman film, okay? So yeah, again, it's Batman and Robin is sort of a satire. It's definitely campy, and it's unapologetic about it, and it's consistent with the Batman 66 movie and television show, and it's accurate with the costumes and with the Batmobile and so forth. And then one other thing I thought was kind of neat in this is the way Poison Ivy's, it's the first time I saw that, and it wasn't a part of the comic that I remember, but where you actually see Poison Ivy infecting men with her drug, and how it's like you can actually see the drug going into their nose as a visual representation. I thought that was very interesting and very well done. And the whole thing with Robin being drugged, that's why he's acting the way he is with the drug floating. Also, one scene I wanted to, because I see a lot of criticism towards the credit card scene where Batman pulls out a credit card. I just want to make it clear that I don't have a problem with that, because the credit card says Batman. It doesn't say Bruce Wayne. So the idea that Batman would have a credit card, I don't think it reveals his identity in any way. It doesn't give it away, so I'd say that's not a big deal. I'm sure that the people of Gotham know that Batman is financed by somebody, because he clearly has, as Jack Nicholson says in Batman '89, he's got an awful lot of toys, so he's financed somehow. So I don't have a problem with that scene. And yeah, like I said, the main theme of family and how family is affected by a family member's death. There's just a really nice balance that they do in this with representing, the compassion that the family has for its family member that's dying. I think that was really well done.
spent my entire life trying to beat back to everything I've done, everything I'm capable of doing. But I can't save you.
There's no defeat in death, Master Bruce. Victory comes in defending what we know is right, while we still live.
I love you, old man.
And I love you too.
Yeah, I think that I've covered pretty much everything off. So this is episode 35, and why I love Batman and Robin, why I think it's a top tier Batman film, why I appreciate that it's different from all other Batman films, and why I have a personal connection to it. I think it's a much better film than is generally considered by most people. So next time you watch this film, I just ask that you just kind of give it a bit of a break and just kind of think about what it's sort of saying and what it's trying to be. It's not trying to be Christopher Nolan's Batman, thank God. It's its own thing. It's trying to be a homage to Batman 66 with a deeper theme in there, which is family and how family deals with the death of someone in a family, which is actually a pretty deep theme for what is essentially in many ways a children's film. But I love it. I love it unapologetically, and that's the reason why. So that's it for this episode, Trekkie Dave, and episode 35. And I'll be back with episode 36. I'm actually going to be doing another Batman video because we're seeing the new Batman film, the Matt Reeves Batman film, on Friday. So I'll give my reaction to it on Saturday. And I also want to analyze Batman 89 because to me, Batman 89 fundamentally is the quintessential Batman film. And what it did, it didn't change everything, but what it did was, well, it's the essential Batman film that I really respect, and I just want to go over the elements that make that up. So I'll have two Batman films back to back. So episode 36 will also be about Batman. So I'm catching up on Batman content right now. So I hope what I've said is clear and that it's understood. And I'll be back with episode 36 next time. And right now, with what's going on in the world, with sorry, Julie.
Ukraine and Russia?
Yeah, with Ukraine and Russia, I usually say God bless you and so forth. Well, today I'm going to say God bless to the Ukraine, and just what's going on there is just horrendous. And I think it's time for all of us to stand up and speak up and help the people of the Ukraine. So anyways, I'll end with that, and that is the end of this episode. Trekkie Dave out. Thank you.